All right, buckle up, everybody, because we are diving deep into the latest Trump-Harris showdown. We've got those transcripts, from tactic.io of their recent debate. And let me tell you something, he's going to want the Cliff's Notes version of this thing, believe me. So think of it this way. You bring the curiosity, we'll bring the insights, and together we're going to crack the code of this wild, wild political rodeo.
You know, what's really striking right off the bat is just how quickly the glove come off. I mean, right from that opening bell, it's a battle of these contrasting visions, especially when we're talking about the economy.
Yeah, Harris comes out swinging right with this whole opportunity economy plan. On the surface, sounds like a breath of fresh air, but does it really hold up when you take a closer look?
Well, and that's what makes this really interesting. Because Harris, she very strategically frames her plan around what she calls targeted tax cuts. And I want you to listen to that word, targeted, because it's a key difference from the way that Trump's approaching this. So rather than these broad corporate tax breaks that we've seen before, her plan really zeroes in on small businesses, especially those that are just starting up. And essentially what she's saying is we're going to put money right back into the engine of job creation by focusing on those folks. And she even brings in some big guns, right? She name drops economic heavyweights. We're talking Goldman Sachs, the Wharton School, even throws in a Nobel laureate or two for good measure.
Okay, so she's not just talking the talk here. She's bringing receipts. But you know Trump. He's not one to be outdone, right? What does he do? He brings back an old faithful, tariffs. Anyone else getting that, deja vu feeling?
It's like we're stuck in a time loop, right? This is classic Trump. I mean, tariffs, it's like his Swiss Army knife solution for every single problem. He's hammering home that same message that we've heard before, unfair trade deals, making other countries pay. And, he's doing his best to downplay those inflation concerns. But here, Harris, she's not letting him off that easy.
Oh, no, no way. And things get really spicy, and I mean spicy, when she brings up what could these tariffs actually mean for, everyday folks, like you and me. Remember that whole Trump sales tax debate? She's basically saying that these tariffs, they're going to slap a 20% price hike on everything. Groceries, gas, you name it.
And here's the thing, right? Economists are estimating that this could cost the average family an extra $4,000 per year.
That's real money.
Yeah, that's not chump change at all.
No. And of course, Trump denies this, right? Says there's no such thing as a Trump sales tax. And technically he's right, but it's a classic case of sidestepping the larger point here. Tariffs, no matter what you call them, ultimately they impact what consumers pay. And even the debate moderator jumps in, points out that burden on families could be as high as $44,000.
Yeah. Ouch. That stings a little bit, doesn't it? But I guess the truth often hurts.
Sometimes it does.
So we've got Harris over here dropping truth bombs left and right, using all the economic jargon. But what's Trump's play here? What's his counter strategy? You guessed it. Blame it on literally anything and everything, except, of course, his own policies. Yeah, I mean, this is a page straight out of the Trump playbook, isn't it? Take all the credit when things are good.
Yeah.
But the second things go south, it's everyone else's fault.
Right.
Remember those pre-pandemic economic highs that we had?
Yeah, right.
He's really hoping that voters have a touch of collective amnesia and forget about anything that's happened since.
Speaking of bad memories, are you ready to unpack this immigration debate?
Oh, boy.
Because I'm telling you, this is where things take a bit of a turn. And not necessarily in a good way.
Yeah, it's a bumpy ride.
We're talking outlandish claims, heated exchanges, and just a whole lot of us versus them rhetoric.
And one moment that really illustrates this is Trump's little anecdote about Springfield, Ohio. He paints this picture of immigrants just running rampant. And get this, he even says they're resorting to, and I can't believe I'm saying this, eating pets.
Hold on. Did he really just say that? Because that seems like a stretch even for him, eating pets.
Yes. And predictably, the fact checkers, they had a field day with this one. The city manager of Springfield even came out and said, nope, not a shred of evidence to support this.
Shocker. I mean, it's like he just throws these completely out there claims out there just to get a rise out of people. Facts. Who needs them?
And it doesn't even end there. He then tries to spin this whole narrative that global crime rates are down. Why? Because other countries are shipping all their criminals to the US of A.
Okay, see, now this right here, this is classic Trump rhetoric.
Textbook.
Stoke the anxieties, create the sense of fear, and oh my gosh, we're all doomed.
He knows exactly what buttons to push.
Oh, he does.
To get his base fired up.
Oh, yeah.
And to attract voters who are really looking for that hardline stance on immigration.
Right. It's all strategic.
It is.
But is it effective? That's the question.
The question is, does it work this time?
I guess we'll have to wait and see. But it does make you wonder, how do you even counter? I mean, how do you even begin to counter those kinds of outlandish statements? It's got to be a tough spot for Harris.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, she's walking this tightrope, trying to acknowledge and address these claims without giving them more airtime,
Yeah.
more oxygen than they deserve.
Right. Got to be delicate.
So what's her strategy? Well, she tries to focus on the tangible. For example, she points out that Trump's own administration actually played a big role in making the immigration issues that he's now using for his campaign even worse.
Mm.
She even brings up this bipartisan border security bill that she says he torpedoed because, and I'm quoting her here, he'd rather campaign on problems than solve them.
And then there's that moment where he pulls his classic, I'm so concerned I'm walking out stunt. The whole, I'm so concerned I'm leaving the debate to go fix the border. You got to give him credit. He knows how to put on a show.
It's calculated.
Oh, absolutely.
There's no doubt about that. I mean, on the one hand, it plays into that image he's built for himself.
Mm-hmm.
The man of action. I'm not just going to sit here and talk. I'm going to get things done. But
Right.
on the other hand, it's hard not to see it as a way to just completely avoid having an actual discussion about immigration policy.
Which, let's be honest, we didn't really get much of from either candidate.
No, not really.
I mean, this whole debate segment, much like a roller coaster, am I right? High on theatrics, low on substance.
A recurring theme, unfortunately.
Yeah, tell me about it.
But don't worry. We'll unpack all the implications of this and analyze what both candidates are up to as we continue our deep dive.
Okay, folks, if you thought that immigration debate was a whirlwind, get ready, because we are about to step into a minefield: abortion. And let me tell you, this is where the tension between Trump's past statements and his current position becomes almost impossible to ignore.
Oh, he's doing this delicate dance.
Yeah.
Because on the one hand, you've got him, really touting that role he played in overturning Roe v. Wade. And he's framing that as this victory for, states' rights. But then on the other hand, he tries to soften it a bit. He's voicing support for those exceptions, right? Like in cases of rape, incest, to protect the life of the mother. So it begs the question, I guess, does this kind of balancing act, does it really resonate with voters? Or does it just come across as, dare I say it, flip-flopping?
And that's where things get really, really interesting. It's like he's trying to thread a needle in a hurricane. I mean, one minute he's all about states' rights, and the next he's expressing support for a federal ban on abortion. I mean, talk about a political tightrope walk, right? Remember that whole back and forth we saw about the Florida 6-week abortion ban?
Yeah, and let's not forget, he really tends to frame this whole debate just the most extreme terms. Like, he throws out this line about Democrats supporting abortion up to and even after birth, which, come on, that is not only misleading, it's medically inaccurate, and it's these kinds of statements, right, these inflammatory statements, that make it practically impossible to have a nuanced conversation about this really complex issue.
It's like he's speaking a completely different language, A language that's designed to just evoke fear and outrage, not to actually try to reach any kind of understanding. But speaking of different languages, Harris counters with this incredibly personal story about a friend of hers from high school who was sexually assaulted.
Yeah.
Talk about a powerful moment.
Really powerful.
I mean, it really brings the whole debate crashing back down to earth, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It reminds everybody about the very real consequences of these policies on actual people.
Absolutely. And it's a smart move by her. Because she takes this issue, right, that can often feel very abstract and theoretical, and she grounds it in actual human experience.
Yeah.
By sharing that story, she shifts the focus away from these abstract arguments and puts it on the real impact that these restrictive abortion laws would have on women's lives. And then she takes it a step further. She introduces this concept. She calls it Project 2025, which is essentially this plan, she claims, that Trump and his allies have to basically start monitoring pregnancies and miscarriages at a national level.
Hold on. Project 2025. That sounds like something straight out of like a dystopian novel or something.
It does, doesn't it?
Tell me more about this, because if she's right, this is some seriously scary stuff.
It really raises some major red flags about where things could be headed with reproductive rights in this country. I mean, imagine a world where the government has access to your most private medical information, tracking pregnancies, potentially even intervening in cases of miscarriage. And suddenly, it's not just about abortion anymore. We're talking about government overreach into some of the most personal aspects of our lives.
Okay, I'm officially creeped out.
Yeah.
And just when you thought things couldn't get any more intense, we have to talk about January 6th. Tell me, How do you even begin to unpack that powder keg of a topic?
Well, it's one of those conversations that's just completely unavoidable, right? As uncomfortable as it might be. And you can really feel the tension in the room.
Yeah.
And in this moment, the moderator does not hold back. She directly confronts Trump about his role, about what he said and what he did in those days leading up to January 6th.
Yeah, she does not let him off easy at all. I mean, she point blank reminds him about that whole March to the Capitol speech and that line, I'll be right there with you. I mean, talk about a direct link between rhetoric and real world consequences.
It's a direct line.
Yeah.
And this is where I think things get really, really revealing. Because instead of taking some responsibility, right, expressing even a little bit of remorse for what happened, Trump just deflects. He points the finger at Nancy Pelosi, blames the mayor of D.C. for security failures. Anyone and everyone except himself.
Classic Trump tactic.
It's like he's trying to rewrite history.
Yay.
Right in front of our eyes.
Yeah, but the moderator, she's not buying it. And neither is Harris.
Yeah.
You have to remember, she was actually there at the Capitol that day. She saw the chaos and the violence firsthand. Yeah, she's got a very different perspective on this, that's for sure.
And that experience, it just gives her words so much more weight that Trump's deflections just fall flat. She doesn't just list out the events of that day. She describes it as an attack on democracy itself, a chilling reminder of how fragile our institutions really are. And that's a stark contrast to Trump trying to downplay it all, saying it's old news.
So what you're left with is these two completely different narratives, two completely different ways of interpreting the same event. It's no wonder this country feels so incredibly divided.
Like we're living in two completely different realities.
Right.
And that gets to the heart of what voters are facing in this election. Because it really comes down to a question of who do you believe? Whose version of reality resonates with you? And these aren't just political questions anymore. They're deeply, deeply personal ones. And the answers have huge consequences for the future of our country.
Okay. So we've made it through the policy weeds, dodged a few rhetorical hand grenades along the way, and now we're in the final stretch, right? Trying to figure out what this whole Trump versus Harris showdown actually means. Because let's be real here for a second. It's not just about the words themselves, is it? It's about what those words tell us, about the state of things.
It's like we're watching a play, right? And yeah, we're paying attention to the actors and the dialogue. But what we're really trying to understand are the themes, the underlying message. And I think what you're seeing in this debate, it's a microcosm of American politics right now. All those interruptions, the personal attacks. It's less about actually governing these days. And more about just, scoring points, like it's some kind of political reality show.
Don't even get me started on that whole reality TV vibe. I swear there were moments where I was waiting for the dramatic music to start playing. Like they're going to cut to commercial. Coming up next, will Trump's tariffs tank the economy? Find out after the break.
But on a serious note, is this just the new normal? Because honestly, it's exhausting, and you're not alone. That exhaustion you're feeling, a lot of people are feeling it, and it's something we really need to unpack, because what you have here are two candidates playing to very, very different audiences, using strategies that might not make sense to the other side at all, like Trump, for example. He thrives on that chaotic energy, those rapid-fire attacks. And frankly, it's worked for him before.
He's like that friend,
Yeah.
The one who loves to poke the bear, even when everyone's trying to have a civilized dinner.
I think we all know that friend.
Yeah, but you're right. It resonates with a certain segment of the population. They see that and think he's just telling it like it is.
Authenticity.
Right.
No matter how messy it gets.
Exactly. But then you have Harris trying to steer the conversation toward actual policy, highlighting her experience, and just generally taking a more, measured approach.
So the question becomes, in this super polarized world we live in, which strategy is more effective?
Well, there you have it. The million-dollar question.
And it's a question that each and every one of us needs to grapple with.
Because it's not just about picking a candidate. It's about choosing what kind of political future we want to create.
What kind of country do we want to live in?
Do we want more of this back and forth, this constant tug of war? Or are we finally ready for something different?
And that's what I'll leave you with today, this deep dive. It's giving you the tools, I hope, to cut through all the noise, to see past those shiny sound bites, and to make your own decisions. Because in the end, it's not about Trump or Harris. It's about us and the choices that we make.
So go out there, stay informed, engage in those tough conversations. But most importantly, make your voice heard, because this is your deep dive.
Yeah.
And the future, well, it's in your hands.